How's it going, Broadway freaks? I'm Ben Applegate, and I'm so glad to be with you guys after the holiday break. I did upload an update video if you haven't seen it. It's just going to clarify that I'm kind of changing the format of the videos just a little bit. I'm making topical videos rather than making videos with a whole bunch of stories and trying to mesh them together, because I think that just took too much time and I was rushing through things. I'm not giving a lot of detail and depth. So it just felt kind of shallow. This is my first video of trying that new format out. But before we get to today's video, I just want to say something super cool that happened over the last couple days. So I made a video where I talked about the Emojiland musical, which is happening off Broadway, and I talked about it and I reacted to a little bit of it and I really liked it. And it turns out that the Emojiland musical YouTube channel, the official YouTube channel, commented on my video and thanked me for spreading the word about the musical, basically. So I'm pretty stoked about that. I don't really have anything else to say about that. I just wanted to, brag about it, I guess. I'll cut this part out. With that said, let's get to the topic of the video, which is going to be talking about the shows that are closing, specifically those that closed just a couple days ago. There's quite a few of them. As we know, the circle of life comes to every show. That includes death, the end of the run, and we're going to talk a little bit about why these shows stopped running. We're going to talk about a lot of production, so there's many different reasons why a show will close its run, but I'm going to try and do a deep dive post-mortem, as they call it in the business world, where when a project fails, you do a post-mortem to find out why did the project go wrong and what are we going to do differently in the future. I'm going to try to do that with these shows that are closing, but disclaimer, it's kind of hard because Broadway is not exactly going to be very open about why they're closing a show. They're obviously going to be very tight-lipped because they're a business and they have self-preservation to worry about, yada yada. So right now I'm just out of the way. There's going to be opinion and some speculation in this video from me, but I'm going to try to make it as well thought out and reasoned out as I possibly can, so that at least you can end the video and say, well, I see where he's coming from, even if I don't agree with him. I mean, Broadway's not just going to say,
Tootsie was closed because it received tons of criticism regarding it being transphobic and relying on anti-trans tropes and stereotypes.
yeah, they're not going to say that. And like I said, there are many reasons a show might close. Take, for example, Beetlejuice. Watch my video on that where I explain there's a crazy complicated loophole explaining why Beetlejuice is closing, even though they're selling super well. I got that in one take. And of course, there are 3 shows that are closing because they're seasonal shows, such as Christmas Carol, Slava's Snow Show, and The Illusionist Magic for the Holidays. Also, as a little side note, you have Yiddish Fiddler on the Roof, which happens to be closing now, but it was a limited run that extended its run 4 times, so it was a very successful run. They just happened to close it for reasons that maybe they're moving on. So it's not always dark and dour. But with these 4 shows that I'm going to talk about, I think there are some things that Broadway doesn't want you to know. Ooh, I just got an idea for the title and thumbnail of this video.
What Broadway doesn't want you to know, I'm gonna tell you.
This is weird. The first show I'm going to talk about is Darren Brown's Secret. Of course, Darren Brown is a super well-known magician, or illusionist, I think we call him nowadays. He's had many TV shows, which I can't name off the top of my head, but here they are. Those are the TV shows. So along with that fact, and the fact that his off-Broadway show did really well and sold out its entire run, it's kind of shocking that the show didn't really do very well. And for the context, by the way, here are the sales. And also reviews were really very positive for it as well. So why did the show not do super well? Well, this is where I'm going to have to get more into kind of speculation. Maybe it's just not traditional Broadway. Maybe magic is more suited for Las Vegas, that kind of showy spectacle kind of thing, rather than a story. Personally, I love magic shows. I think I've talked about this before when I talked about The Illusionist. I love magic shows, but I'm not everybody. Perhaps Darren Brown, who by the way is a British magician, a British illusionist, perhaps he's not as well known in the United States, I'm not sure. But that could be it. It's just not really a traditional format for Broadway, and perhaps he just doesn't have the name recognition in the United States as he does in his home country. With that said, of course, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. These are just my opinions, so let me know what yours are. So the next one I want to talk about is Waitress, because this is also a show that I'm not totally sure why it's closing, and I'm not really alone in that. Many fans are also confused as to why Waitress didn't become a staple on Broadway. It was highly reviewed. It's a beautiful show with wonderful music. Now, I think one thing that might hinder it is that the movie it's based on isn't super well known, so it kind of has an original musical kind of feel to it. So maybe that hindered it, but then you might say, well, why did Dear Evan Hansen do super well? Of course, Dear Evan Hansen was a super next level emotional show, so it just kind of fought through that obstacle possibly. But it can't go without saying that Dear Evan Hansen also won the Tony and was kind of the breakout show of its season. Waitress had something to compete with. Let me give you a hint. It came out in early 2016. What show dominated the Tonys in 2016, so much so that to say it dominated the Tonys is an understatement. It redefined the Tonys, it rendered the Tonys irrelevant, and made it practically a formality and a coronation, to the point where the person announcing the winner for the Tony of Best Musical was dressed in a costume of Hamilton. Oh, I said it. It's Hamilton. So yeah, Waitress just didn't get that head start it needed because it was so overshadowed at the time of this other massively transformative, revolutionary musical, and perhaps that had something to do with it. But like I said, I'd like to know what your thoughts are as to why you think Waitress closed. Now, next on this list is Tootsie. Now, this is a musical where I actually did get the chance to see it, so of course my opinion and my experiencing it will be sprinkled into this analysis. So Tootsie was another show that kind of had a lot going for it, you'd think. It had a strong cast, a great lead who ended up winning a Tony for Best Leading Man in a Musical. It also won the Tony for Best Book of a Musical. It had very strong reviews, and for the record, there was only one critic initially who actually pointed out that there might be a problem with the man dressing up as a woman gag in 2019. For the most part, that aspect kind of just went under the rug. It wasn't until later that people started noticing it and saying, this might be an issue in 2019, but we'll get to that in a second. What are the main reasons why Tootsie just couldn't take off? And for the context, of course, here's the grosses. We see it never really reached its potential. Now, here are my opinions. For one, it was based on a 1982 movie that I don't think is really very popular with people my age these days. The music isn't particularly modern sounding. It doesn't really catch on in that same way that other musicals have. And the plot just doesn't center around issues of young people. It's kind of a midlife crisis kind of a situation. So I think not having that strong young base might have hurt it. But as for the elephant in the room, there are a lot of criticisms, and not just on Twitter, but from editorials and opinions on very major newspapers and outlets saying that the show had a lot of transphobic issues. Now, of course, nowhere in the show does the show blatantly say anything about transgender people, but we're talking about more casual, understated tropes that it plays on that might be harmful to transgender people, such as just kind of laughing at the fact that a man is dressing up as a woman, drawing a sharp distinction between Michael, the character, and the character he's playing in the show, Dorothy, implying that just changing your gender makes you a completely different person. And also, there was one line that was kind of concerning. Toward the end of the show, spoiler alert, I guess, Michael throws off his wig and says, being a woman is no job for a man. Now, on the surface, it might sound like he's just saying, well, being a woman is harder than being a man in this society, but also it could come off as something that's anti-trans, as that is similar to the rhetoric that people use against transgender people. For the record, that line actually got an applause at the show that I attended. That was a little unsettling. And also, apparently that phrase was put on merchandise, which was actually taken down by Tootsie the Musical after backlash, because if you're wearing a shirt or carrying a tote that says, being a woman is no place for a man, or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote. Being a woman is no job for a man. So if you're walking around with that on your tote or your shirt, and someone isn't very familiar with Tootsie, in 2019 or 2020, what does that look like? I actually have a really weird story to tell you. I was in a production of White Christmas at a community theater many years ago, and I got a t-shirt that said, that just had the White Christmas logo on it. Well, a few years later, this is still quite a while ago, but I was working at USPS at the warehouse, and it was kind of a blue-collar-y environment, and a lot of men, and a lot of kind of conservative values. So when they saw my shirt, I don't think they were aware of Irving Berlin's White Christmas. I got 3 really weird reactions in one day from wearing that shirt. This was just a t-shirt that I would wear at home or around, just if I had to run errands real quick and throw on a shirt. It was just sitting in my drawer, and we didn't have a dress code or a uniform to wear for our job, so I would just throw this t-shirt on. I had 2 people come up to me at once, compliment my shirt, and within seconds, somehow the conversation went to why they support Trump. And then I had another guy give me a kind of a wink and a nod and say, I like your shirt. I really wish we could... Oh, never mind. Literally like that. I tore that shirt up and threw it away that night. But the point is, people who aren't familiar with the show can apparently take anything out of context. If they can take the phrase White Christmas out of context, an old movie which I guess a lot of people aren't aware of these days, you bet they can take a phrase like being a woman is no job for a man out of context if they don't know the show. So I do understand them taking down that merchandise. But like I said, that's my opinion. I'd like to know what yours are in the comments. But please be respectful, as of course this is a very sensitive issue. And finally, we have The Lightning Thief. And I know there are a lot of fans of this show, but I'm afraid reading the reviews for this really make it pretty clear why the show wasn't doing very well. Here are the gross numbers that it was making. And some of the reviews were really negative, saying it was kind of too fan servicey, not doing a good job of appealing to newcomers. Almost the opposite of Tootsie. How I just said Tootsie didn't really do a good job appealing to young people. It almost seemed like that Lightning Thief was doing the opposite. I didn't see this show, but I did see another show that had a very similar pattern of reviews, Be More Chill, which was also accused of being way too fan servicey and way too silly and over the top and not trying to actually be a good show and earn the fan service. I saw it. I generally really like Be More Chill. I did not like the production because I don't think it was trying to earn its place as a good show for someone who's seeing it for the first time. It kind of just assumes the room is full of fans and we can just have a good time instead of trying to prove ourselves. So anyway, it was really underperforming, with some weeks it being under 50%, which is very rare. And yeah, those are my thoughts as to why I think those shows closed. I'd love to know your opinion, as I've said many times. Go ahead and leave a comment down below. Of course, there was a lot of speculation, so I might as well end this review with, but that's just a theory. A Broadway theory. No, wrong channel. Leave a like. You don't have to agree with everything I said, but if you at least understood where I came from, you can leave a like. I'll make sure to read your comment and leave that a like if I can understand where you're coming from. Consider clicking subscribe if you like content like this. I upload every Tuesday and Friday, and I will be uploading next Friday. I don't know what on, but we'll find out. And with that said, you keep loving Broadway, and I'll see you on Friday.